Well, it is the top of the hour, so we are going to go ahead and get started. My name is Sandy Edwards, and I run the show here at the GoDaddy Pro Meetup. We do this every week at 3 p.m. Eastern, and that's for the US crew and the Americas. And then we also have one on Monday afternoons for the EMEA team if you're in that region. So definitely feel free to check out events.godaddy.com. And all of our events are listed there. First of all, I want to thank Jason for coming out. He is with Stranger Studios, who runs Paid Memberships Pro. And so that means he knows a lot about memberships and a lot about membership sites, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. So I just want to, A, thank you, and B, I'm going to drop off. I'm going to let you take it away, and I will see you back for Q&A.
All right. Thanks, Sandy. Thanks for that great introduction. And that's correct. We've been focused on Paid Memberships Pro solely for the past, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years. But before that, we, Kim and I in our business Stranger Studios had a bunch of membership site clients. So we used to be hands-on in delivering these solutions, and now we kind of maintain and support the the platform, the Paid Memberships Pro platform. And there's over 100,000 sites using Paid Memberships Pro, and we have about 5,000 paying customers. And one of the origins for this talk is that, every once in a while, about once a quarter, we dump all of our new customers and their websites into an Excel spreadsheet, and then we visit their website manually, and we try to classify it. And we say, like, is this an association? Is this like, a business? Is this, what niche is this in? Is it finance or health and wellness? And so, we analyze that data, and out of that, we, about half our customers are associations, and the other half maybe fall into like courseware or kind of solo entrepreneur. So I take all that data, and I got some of that, and I'll share it with you at a high level. I'm not going to drill into the technology. I'm going to kind of talk about, hey, these are the kinds of companies that are, building membership sites and hiring people to build membership sites, and kind of talk about the different kinds of businesses and how you might approach them. And kind of more specifically, these are the main points that I want everyone to take away from this. One is that membership sites can be some of your most valuable clients. I don't want you to be shied away from working on membership sites. I think Sandy was rightly, before we started the presentation, talking about how membership sites are really complicated, and there's lots of moving parts, and there's a lot going on, but you still shouldn't be kind of worried about it. These can also be really good clients. Because sites that make money spend money. When in 2008, when there was a downturn, that was the first time I really realized that our customers who had websites that were bringing in revenue, membership sites and e-commerce sites, their website became more important to them as the economy pulled back, because that was how they made money. And definitely this last year with the global pandemic, there was a bump in e-commerce activity. And if you had consulting clients who were doing e-commerce, their website was super important to them. Before, and all of a sudden even more important. And that's kind of a good position to be in, helping sites that make money. The other thing is not just monetary, but helping organizations achieve their goals is very fulfilling. Like when an organization is able to raise more money and do more of the the stuff that they're doing is good. And on the business side, folks who can turn like a side project into a full-time gig, it's really rewarding watching those folks be successful. I want people to understand that like the tech stack for membership sites is robust, like our plugin and all the other membership plugins and some of the WordPress software that facilitates all this is some of the most kind of mature and like well-maintained in the industry. There's, big companies kind of focused on making these things good. And then I want to go through, there's many different types of membership sites, and it could be overwhelming, the different types, but maybe there's like a niche, like a certain type that as I go through that will be attractive to you, and you can start to focus there. So don't be afraid to focus. Another kind of motivation for this talk is from my interactions with folks, usually like freelancers or small agencies at WordCamps and other conferences. For Paid Memberships Pro to work, we need agencies and kind of implementers who are able to set up complicated websites for customers. Sometimes people can DIY, but they often need help, and we can't at scale deliver that help to everybody. So we kind of need these partners. I'm on the lookout for them, but I often hear from folks, this list of fears. They're like, oh, I couldn't work on like an e-commerce website. And I want to show how like all these fears are also opportunities. Because if you can get through that fear, it's, you could have really great customers. You might be worried that like e-commerce is like so critical and like you feel comfortable updating someone's, like I call it brochureware site, just like static content websites that maybe you're comfortable with. You're like, hey, I'm comfortable doing that, but something really important like e-commerce, I'd want them to use like a bigger associate or a bigger agency or, more sophisticated implementer. Or you're worried about like messing things up, about them not getting paid. Like if your software goes down, then they lose money. That like feels like that could hurt. It's complicated. We talked about, and then like I'm a fan of this, like doing work that's repeatable. You don't want to like reinvent the wheel every single time. Like it's really good for an agency to get into the swing of things and like be like to have a groove of like we make this kind of website. It's on, you can see our past client, you want exactly that website. I know exactly how to deliver it and how to price it, and you're going to be taken care of. So, wandering into something new, I'm really sensitive to that fear. But on the other hand, there's opportunities here, right? So e-commerce customers are more likely to spend. Like I said, if they're making money with their website, it makes sense for them to spend money to like maintain and grow that website. E-commerce customers are often more motivated. This is not just a side project. If you find it, and especially membership and associations, like these are like mission critical organizations that have a lot of people involved and they're motivated to get things done. The flip side of it's complicated is that means that there's value for you to add, that customers need more help. And that's where it comes in and why you can charge money for it. And then, like I said, like if you're worried about, brochureware sites have become commoditized, they're getting cheaper. It's easier for people to build them on their own. There's a lot of competition and agencies that can deliver that. E-commerce can be repeatable too. Like if you really focus in on a use case, and I'm going to go over at a high level a bunch of them, but if you focus on one specific use case, it might be hard the first time you implement that solution. But after that, it's kind of like there's so many, membership associations and kind of business courseware websites and formulas that are repeatable. You just, have to find the right kinds of customers. So that last slide, I was focused on like e-commerce in general, but membership sites are even better than all that. You get all the benefits of an e-commerce site, but oftentimes memberships are more established organizations. There's, they have stickier recurring revenue. There's a lot of these organizations, like the ideal customer almost is they're an organization that's offline and you can bring them online. And, you lower the friction for their memberships to members to pay, and it makes it easier for them to kind of grow more members and get more revenue. And it's a sticky kind of revenue. A lot of these associations, as we'll get into, membership in them doesn't stop at the end of a year. Like they don't have to resell it to them. Like if you're in the nurses association, you're like pretty much a nurse for your whole career and you're always going to renew your membership. They definitely have to like maintain the value of being in the membership, some of them, but it's pretty sticky. It's kind of like there's lots of built-in value add to staying in these associations and things. So here's like, the main slide here where I'm going to go through the different types here. I split them into two groups, and I didn't want to share like specific stats. I don't know if I mentioned spreadsheet. Only indicative of our customers. So the nature of our platform that's good for certain solutions and not for others probably, kind of informs which kinds of customers we end up having. But generally, it's a 50-50 split between associations and kind of, what I label as courseware here, but it's like small business, kind of hobby community sites. It's kind of like associations and everything else. And then associations break down into three types. And I'm going to go into more detail in the next slides for each of these types. But there's trade associations, professional associations, and then I label it as like nonprofits, kind of everything else, charities. And then on the courseware side, the three main types that kind of pull out of the data are cohort memberships, evergreen memberships, and community sites. And again, I'll drill into those. On the courseware side, I also talk about the different industries because, associations also target different industries, but I think the moving parts of an association website stay the same no matter what industry you're in. Whereas, because there's a lot of people involved, whereas small business wise, the different industries have different personalities. And so the main ones that come up are finance, health and wellness, programming, and business. So if you are looking for something to target, these are kind of the most popular ones that come out of our data. And I'm going to drill into some of those now on the association side. Okay, so first up are trade associations. And like I said, there's trade associations, and then there's like professional organizations or professional associations. And you're like, what is the difference? Like, there is a lot of overlap sometimes, but there, I don't know, there is a difference in, how these associations act and what, kind of software and features they need. But specifically, trade associations are focused on a specific industry. And the typical members of a trade association are the businesses within that industry. And then what that association does is it funds common causes, research, education. They might lobby the government on behalf of the industry, things of that nature. So it's focused on like an industry, right? And the members of the association are usually businesses. So examples, like the biggest examples of these are the US Chamber of Commerce, or like the Motion Picture Association of America. There's many more. And I also show smaller examples. So I tried to show like the most well-known, at least in, I'm US centric here, the most well-known examples of these kinds of associations, but they're huge. Like, I don't know if the Motion Picture Association of America, like what their budget is for their website and all the software that it runs is probably millions of dollars. And maybe this is a stepping stone. Like if you watch all of these videos in the GoDaddy series, you're going to be tackling, multi-million-dollar projects. But I'm assuming that the audience for these are going after smaller projects. But I just want you to understand, like, that's an example of that type of trade association. But for every like global or national scale trade association, there are so many, kind of smaller local associations or associations focused on like very niche, small industries. And things like that. So on the flip side, for trade associations, like, the Greater Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce is, similar to the Chamber of Commerce, but just for this area, and any metro area or even small town across the country probably has a Chamber of Commerce. And then, like I said, there's local chapters of bigger associations. Sometimes in our experience, we've seen like national associations start projects to kind of develop a membership site and then pass that down to their individual state and regional chapters. But a lot of times we've worked with a local chapter that maybe they are getting handed a solution down from the national chain, but they don't like it. They're like, that software that they want us to use doesn't really work. I like a WordPress-based solution and this membership plugin and stuff. And we've worked with like local chapters. And then if you land, like the Pennsylvania chapter of so-and-so, then they share that with the New Jersey association of the same thing, and the California association and Florida association. So we've landed clients in the past that then spread across the country and then up to the global chain. So you can kind of start small and build up. And then what I also want to point out for each of these types is, without going into too much detail again, like the main features that this type of membership site needs versus other sites. And so each of these kind of features, Paid Memberships Pro and other membership plugins will have add-ons or extensions. WordPress or third-party solutions. So kind of each of these little features is like a plugin or a software platform of its own that gets integrated into the membership site. And trade associations have annual events where they get together and talk about their trade. And you'll see that that's a recurring theme for almost every membership type, is people like to get together and talk about things that, they're interested in together. But trade associations also have a lot of communication needs. Like a big part of what they do is like newsletters and pushing like PR and media out to their association. They sometimes have forums and other ways for members to communicate. Approvals is important in trade and professional associations. If you are going to join the Motion Picture Association of America, you kind of have to prove that you work in that industry. They don't want, a fisherman, kind of joining, or just a random person joining. The other thing that's very important and kind of specific to trade associations too is what's called sponsored accounts, or sometimes umbrella accounts. And that's where the business will sign up for the association, but then individual employees of that business will have separate accounts. And so you want the business to be paying the bill, and then, that gives them so many accounts that for the actual human beings that are interacting on the membership site. And so that's a need that's specific to this type of association. Okay, we also have professional associations. And like I said, there's some overlap, but what's professional associations are is they're focused on specific career paths, so not industry, careers. And their typical members are individuals, so not businesses, they're individual people. And the association will help members of the professional association advance their careers. So some examples of professional associations are like the American Nurses Association, or like the American Bar Association for lawyers, or just pretty much any kind of career path you can think of has some kind of American or North American association. And again, they're very large, but there's small examples of these. So one of my favorite is an early paid memberships pro customer was the Texas Beekeepers Association. And I guess there's quite a few, like at least a few dozen, a couple hundred beekeepers in Texas, and they like to get together and talk about their trade or their career as beekeepers on once a year and on their website and things like that. And again, almost every state across the country has a beekeepers association of its own, and a lot of them are using paid memberships pro now. And there's a UK beekeepers association and an Australian beekeepers association. So almost like any kind of profession or activity you can think of has these like small pocketed local associations, and that's something that you can look out for. Some features that are specific to professional associations, again, they have annual events where they get together. Kind of different from the trade associations, directories are more important. So one of the big benefits of joining a professional association sometimes is you get your name on a website that becomes like the place where people search for people. If you're looking for a beekeeper in Texas, I'm almost certain that they have a directory of the beekeepers on their website. Again, approvals is important. So you want to make sure that the people who are coming in, don't just pay and gain access to everything on the website. Like maybe there's a manual like review and approval process before people get full membership. So that's important. There's also kind of certification and education. A big value add that these professional associations give is that they, I get to say I'm a member of, and I'm a certified member of X professional association, within my craft and career. And so I can use that in my advertising and things like that. And that's that's one of those sticky factors that these associations have that keep people coming back and back is, I have to update. I have to pay the Bar Association every year, even if I'm not practicing law, to kind of maintain that certification because I want it, in my byline on, the op-eds or whatever. So people are like, it's really sticky. The certification is important. Job boards are important. Like, professional associations that are helping individuals pursue their careers. Like the almost most important piece of that is finding jobs. And sometimes the associations take that on directly on their website. And then the third kind of association type, I'm just calling other nonprofits and charities. And these are less, kind of business driven or individual driven and more cause driven. So you could call these like cause driven associations. And the typical members of these sites are donors, people donating their money. And then the associations use those funds to, pursue common causes, sometimes lobby the government, sometimes, give grants for research and development.
Like the United Way or St. Jude Children's Research Hospital.
But again, for every one of those like really big, national level companies with, million, tens of millions of dollar budgets, there's smaller nonprofits that need our help too. There's one in Pennsylvania called Alex's Lemonade Stand, which is, the child's name was Alexandra Scott, I believe, and died of childhood cancer. And, while she was terminal, she had a lemonade stand and raised money for research. And kids around Pennsylvania will have lemonade stands. And so that's like a local to Pennsylvania. I think it's spread out from Pennsylvania. But it's like there's associations like that, smaller versions of these charities. The other thing I point is kind of like the Patreon model. There's people who are funding like fan activity. They're fans, artists, or there's artists who are being funded by their fans and things of that nature. And so that's also this kind of model of site. Features that these kinds of sites need, they need donations. So a donation is slightly different from like a one-time payment or a subscription payment. You can have some recurring subscription donations. More often, like donations are variable. You want to give people like the suggest $50, but if they donate $5,000, that's great too. Fundraising is like a main activity for a lot of these. So they'll have email newsletters, and like the main goal of the newsletter is to bring in more members, get exposure for the cause, and also like bring in new funds. They'll have annual events, galas for these charities and things like that. So events is also kind of important. And they'll sometimes have directories, but instead of highlighting, helping people find folks of a certain profession, instead, like, the directories are highlighting like the high level donors. So if you donate at a certain level, we'll put, your face, if you want to, like, on the supporters page. Yep. Awesome. Cool. So the other half, of our customers, I'm labeling here as like coursework types, because they're usually education focused of some sort. And I can go into the different types here. So one type of kind of educational membership, say, is cohort based. And a cohort means, a small group of people who participate in the membership course together. So it's similar to college courses. You'll have open, like, an enrollment period, and everyone signs up, and then, like, hey, by the end of June, you have to have paid, and you'll be in this cohort, and everyone who signed up, or maybe sometimes there's a limit on the number of slots for all of July on a set schedule, we're going to meet together and kind of learn something together. Cohorts usually have one-time payments, so you're paying for like one batch, like one, kind of course at a time. They're typically more hands-on. The instructor is, getting on video conferencing, or participating, like, kind of more directly, like even sometimes face-to-face when that's, or online. It's not pre-recorded, it's kind of live, although parts of it can be pre-recorded. And then some form of communication through like forums, Slack, Discord, or Facebook groups is usually very important to this, for everyone to stay in touch, both like during the course and then oftentimes after the course. If sometimes there's a one-time payment to take the course, and then there's a small recurring membership fee to kind of stay involved. Sometimes people don't charge for that piece. And email marketing is still important to this. Like, there's an email series typically, like, on this is day one, and here's what we're going to do day two, what we're going to do, that kind of thing. So, membership site cohorts have their own set of needs, and they, a lot of times this is kind of like an entryway for thought leaders and consultants who want to kind of share their education. They're like, I'm really comfortable, like, kind of one-on-one talking about this stuff, and maybe I've written a book, or I have like some documents that I share, but it's not so organized that I could just kind of download it to someone and let them do it at their own pace. Like, it needs more hand-holding. And so, they can take that online and kind of do, like, virtual membership through the website and charge one-time payments to join a cohort. So it's almost like a gateway drug into what's next, which is, evergreen memberships. Sometimes folks, start with this. Like, if you're building your content and you want it more hands-off, you can start here, but a lot of folks will start with a cohort membership, kind of figure it out, take really good notes, build up the content, and then work that into something that they can kind of sell on demand, and people can take at their own pace.
An evergreen, what's called an evergreen membership. And hopefully I've maybe seen these words before,
but I try to sprinkle like a little bit of the, kind of terminology to find, because this is the stuff that you would maybe search for, or be able to, use these words to learn more, and talk with the potential customers. But yeah, so evergreen memberships usually open enrollment to anyone interested. Like, as long as you pay, you kind of gain access to the course right away. It's typically self-paced. So monthly or annual subscriptions are kind of common here, depending on the type of content. And they're less, like I said, they can have hands-on components. There's overlap here, but usually it's less hands-on, and like more content, like recorded video. And usually, email series that are automated are great for this too, where, you're getting day one, day two, day three type content. Sometimes a membership site will want you to like go slow, because if you're taking a course like in a health and wellness, where, maybe there's like an exercise routine, even, like, they don't want you to skip ahead through. You're not going to do, leg day on day one. You got to wait till day three. Or like the course, you need time to kind of let it sit. So, drip out this drip feed. That's another term, drip out the content over time. But a lot of times, like if someone, is able to, they can skip ahead, or they have access to like all the lessons all at once, and they can kind of pick and choose or go at their own pace. So this is maybe like, if you like, the most common subscription membership for a small business is not association related. This is kind of like standard, pay me a certain amount and I'll give you some content. A third type then of, kind of educational membership site is what I call here membership communities. And so the main differentiator here is that the primary value of the community is access to each other. And it's similar to professional associations, but it like includes hobby groups or like more informal communities. There's not always like a 501c3 or even a business entity at all like involved. It's, a collection of humans getting together. So some examples are collectible cars, or like fan pages for bands, or like stock trading groups, where they're in live chat on the website. They learn how to trade with a certain strategy, and then like they come to the website to talk to each other every day and share their setups and like how the trading's going and stuff like that. Software that's important to these folks is like forums, and then there's whole platforms like BuddyPress or BuddyBoss, which turn WordPress into a Facebook like social network. Then Slack, Discord, live chat is important for these, or Facebook groups of some sort. And again, annual events sometimes are useful for these folks. They like to get together, and sometimes directories are useful for membership communities as well. Yeah. And I think I'll get into it on the one slide. Like, one thing about membership communities is there's a little bit of a chicken and an egg case for a lot of these, unless they had some really strong offline component. Like we always met, like in person once a week at this, or once a month at this place, and now we're kind of meeting online. If this is being built from the ground up, the primary value is communication with other members. So you need a lot of members, and they need to be active to talk to each other. I feel like I would look out for this. I see a lot of folks try to build these and fail. And I honestly don't know like the secret ingredient, but I know that you need to like not just build the forum for them to talk, but encourage them and give them the prompts and kind of like be in there with them. And I think this is one example maybe where like trials can work to kind of hit a critical mass, and you kind of have to be sensitive to the pricing, like build the value and then kind of raise up the price as the value comes up. So it's pretty tough. There's a couple of our customers who have done this well, and I'm really looking forward to like try to drill in and like, like, how did you do this? Because we see a lot of people kind of try this kind of thing, and it's not a like build it and they will come. It's, a lot of times you build it, and if no one shows up or people show up and then they don't want to pay, that doesn't work out. But that's a sensitive one. And then finally, like I said, the industries that some of these, small business, e-learning type membership sites are in. And I put like a bullet point of just like something of the nature of this kind of customer. So in finance sites, like those stock trading sites need live chat. There might be a feature that a certain industry needs. Or I find often that people in the health and wellness industry, they're more sensitive to the design of the website. Like they really want it to look good, be engaging, convey either like a sense of calm or wellness or health, on the site. They're going to be like pickier about, what their website looks like and how it works. Again, like a lot of courses are around programming, because programming is a hugely in demand skill right now. And
people are sharing their courses, but just like this is a good thing and a bad thing.
That you got to remember, like if you're helping someone sell their programming course, that like your client is a programmer, and maybe that means they can take on a lot of the responsibility. Maybe it means they're going to kind of, if they're not a WordPress developer and you're building a WordPress site, that they might get in your way a little bit. And then on the business side, one of the things to remember with those kinds of like, like a guru who is like a consultant, or like, they know a lot about like an industry, or, they're a coach of some sort, and they do one-on-one, and they want to bring some of it into like into a membership site or sell courses and things like that. That's like an awesome path, and a lot of folks can do that. Like one thing to keep in mind there is a lot of times like the membership site can be a loss leader, or like the business model around it can be kind of creative in a way, like it doesn't have to support itself if it's kind of facilitating like, higher value clients for the business person. So that's something to keep in mind. Like times you want to make sure that your customers like are going to be profitable, or they want them to be happy and with the work that you give them. And so, like I said, like creating the community where people talk to each other, it's like really hard to get that to work. On the business side, like, yeah, like you know, this is one area where like you might be open to membership sites that, you know, lose money but make money in other areas and stuff. Yeah. So then I just have a few more slides, which are some collections of tips, you know, that kind of elaborates on some of this. Like another thing I wanted people to figure out is like, so like there's all these different kinds of membership sites. E-commerce is really good. I gave you that slide. We'll review it again of like all the great reasons why e-commerce and membership sites, you know, are good customers to have. They're sticky, they have recurring revenue. And so that means like you could get recurring revenue from them, help them maintain it. You know, people who make money want to spend money. You know, membership sites, they need expertise to help them up and running. And that's kind of the value that you add and why you can charge for it. So yeah, go after e-commerce, go after memberships. But when you do, you're still going to have bad customers in this space and good customers. And so one of the main red flags of bad customers that they don't have members yet, or they don't have a following. Like I said, if they try, they're like, hey, if I have a good idea, someone told me I should have, I'm smart, and they probably are smart. A lot of times they're smart, and like they have a great idea, and they're like, someone told me I should make a membership site, so I'm going to make it, and everyone's going to love this and pay me for this, you know, knowledge that I'm dropping. And it doesn't always work. Like if you don't already have a following, you know, there's a lot of stuff on the website. So just that's like a red flag. Like, you know, sometimes you can help those folks. Sometimes it's an idea that deserves that. And a lot of ideas kind of start there. Not everything, you know, you already have a following, but it is a red flag. And sometimes it's like, hey, slow down. Maybe instead of me creating a membership e-commerce site for you, let me create a blog or a newsletter or like a static site and help you get set up on social media and pushing out valuable content. And you spend 6 months to a year doing that to build up a following, an email list. Once you have that, okay, let's see if we can get some money from these folks. Yeah, so on the flip side, associations that already have members paying offline is a great customer, because we've worked with associations, and even like a lot of them came online last year because they had to through the pandemic. Like they were, you know, hey, we can't meet online anymore. We have to do things online. A lot of the associations I'm involved with do so much more online than they used to. But there's still many out there where like even if they're online, like they're like, hey, download this PDF, fill it out, and mail it in with a check. And you're like, man, that's so, you know, 20th century. Like you really need to get with like at least 2004 era e-commerce and pay for, you know, your stuff online. So if you can help those folks like use a membership platform that accepts payment online, a lot of times they'll get more members, they'll get more revenue, and then they'll be so thankful for like what you're doing for them and able to kind of achieve their goals. So look for, you know, those customers who have a lot of members already paying, and you're just helping them with the technology and helping them move. There's some challenges involved, but that's a better situation than, you know, when they're trying to drum up following. Or they don't have to be paying members. Maybe they have like whatever it is, 1 million Twitter followers or a newsletter, you know, with so many thousands of people, a bunch of email addresses, or just like a captivative audience that they already have like contact with. So then a bad customer might have like complicated pricing plans and systems. We'll see this a lot with, you know, associations that are offline and they're coming online for the first time. You know, it's like, oh, it's, you know, if you sign up in November, you get a discount. But if
it's you and your spouse, you know, there's another discount.
There's like 3 tiers, you know, people who've been here for so long get this, or I have some folks who, you know, we locked them into pricing from a few years ago and we can't change it. One thing you can explain, like some of those bad customers, if they really are clinging to that, you kind of want to avoid that customer. But this is an opportunity also to kind of convince them like, hey, like you're creating a new website, let's start fresh. Let's have simpler pricing. I go into pricing on a whole slide, so I won't get into it now. But yeah, look for customers who like when you are kind of excited about simplifying their pricing, their plans, and their systems. Again, like associations will have lots of like inflexible bureaucracy, or thought leader gurus will be like really like know-it-all type personalities almost, and like think that they know how to do things and not willing to kind of adjust to you or respect your expertise or compromise for you. So, if you feel that in those early conversations, you want to steer clear of those customers and look forward to the customers who are kind of, you know, willing to work with you about like the platform you're going to build for them. Another thing to look out for is folks who like seemingly, like that's the key word, seemingly. I should have put that in quotes or italicized it. They seemingly don't care about the details. You want someone who has attention to detail. And this might be a little tricky because you might think it's the reverse. You're like, oh, I want a customer that just says like, you'd be like, you need a forum. And they're like, yeah. If the customer says, yeah, whichever one you like BBPress, let's use it. And you're like, cool, I'll just set up all the defaults and make choices for them. And that's really cool. They don't seem to be asking me a lot of questions about this stuff. What often happens, especially if that's how it's happening in the early phase of the contract, when you're putting price tags on everything and they kind of don't care, they might really care. When you deliver the solution and the first time they really look at it, they're like, oh, like I thought we would be talking on Facebook. And you're like, that's not what we talked about. We talked about using this tool. So there is like a middle ground where you want them like involved enough to kind of really, understand and grok the solution that you're going to give them. It's a red flag if they kind of like something that you think is important to the site and they're like, yeah, I don't worry about it, because they're not worried about it, but they're going to be worried about it later. And then, I'm WordPress focused. And so, you want to avoid customers who are not familiar with WordPress or, don't enjoy WordPress. I was on a really awkward call the other day with an association, and I must have missed the background. I don't know why they set up the call, but like one of the first things out of the customer's mouth was like, we hate WordPress. And I was like, ugh. I was like frozen for like 5 minutes. And I was like, do they not know like it's a WordPress solution? Because that's like all we got. And it was like, I was like, is that really what you mean? Like, you don't like your current plugin? Like, I'll show you a different one and like how we do it. And they're like, oh no, yeah, we're doing it that way. And we're using that event plugin and we don't like it. What they really wanted was like an all-in-one solution and not, how WordPress works. It's, it's bolted on from different pieces. And so, I very quickly turned it around. I was like, what do you want? Found out what they need. And because I have kind of knowledge outside of WordPress as well, they gave me a couple names of some software or solutions that they were looking into. And I went and checked them out and wrote a nice, hey, here's what looks good. And here's what you should watch out for with this non-WordPress solution. But I was in my mind, as soon as they said I hate WordPress, I was like, my goal on the call was not to have them as a customer. My goal was to keep them from becoming a customer. As I was talking, I was in Slack. I was like, remember this guy at the call, make sure that this group doesn't sign up. If you're talking with them, don't encourage them. And that, I don't know if I don't know if that's common. I think people would be like, yeah, of course, that's part of running an association or, delivering website solutions and things, is keeping the wrong customer from signing up. But sometimes we're so hungry and for everything that we really are selling really hard, but it's good to be like, whoa, this is a bad customer. They shouldn't sign up. It's going to be bad for them. It's going to be hard and bad situation for us. So on the flip side, hey, if someone's already familiar with WordPress because they use it for their blog or their website and they're happy with it, and they're going to be a good customer for a WordPress membership solution. And if they want the flex and they appreciate the flexibility of WordPress, that they can do things themselves, that it operates with every other service can kind of be bolted on, that you can customize it when you need to. If people, if all those things sound kind of like, ooh, that sounds bad, instead of sounding good, be less likely to grab those customers. Let's see, maybe 5-10 minutes on the next couple slides. Some technical considerations to go through. If you're, working on membership sites, you're going to need your customers to purchase higher tier hosting. You want to upgrade their GoDaddy hosting to the higher GoDaddy plans. And why is that? That's because membership sites are transactional. The websites are interactive. There's often a lot of moving parts. Your, membership, besides the e-commerce component of it and the restriction component of it, if you're doing events and forums and kind of all this other plugins that are bolted in, all that stuff takes resources. In particular, caching doesn't work when you're trying to differentiate between logged in members or not. The website, someone's looking at your website and you have to tell if they're a member and figure out what content to show them. The server typically has to be involved in that. And same thing on e-commerce when you check out. I mean, there are kind of JavaScript front-end solutions and definitely complicated ways to get around some of these things. But your typical setup, having a beefier server is going to help with this. And then, doing what you need to do to set up caching with all this stuff in mind is going to help. The other thing is admin performance is important. There is a kind of website where if the WordPress admin is a little laggy, it's like, that's okay. Like, how often do you, have to go in and change something, maybe you're updating the menu on your restaurant website, once a month. Like, it can be a little slow. It's okay. But membership sites have a lot of admin interaction. People are in there kind of processing orders, searching the member database, editing users, and doing things like that. So you need your, WordPress admin to be snappy as well. Sometimes another thing to note is sometimes performance requirements are seasonal. So like I said, if you have a cohort membership, when the enrollment is open, it might be slow, but then like the last day, it's really, a lot of people come in last minute. And then when you're actually running the membership, like, at the time of the Zoom call, like the 50 people in the cohort are accessing your website at the same time. So if like the average traffic is kind of, 5 people every, kind of, I don't know, minute or hour or something that like your hosting is handling, like, no, like when I say, check this thing out on my website to 50 people on a Zoom call, like they're all going to hit the button at once. And can your website support, that many people at once? Or like the associations that do kind of, have people signing up at the same time, maybe all those orders and renewals are processing at the same time. At the moment of the annual event, the month before and after, like it's really busy. So that's something to keep in mind performance-wise, like maybe like the average performance. You might have a server that's too big or kind of a solution that scales if you're big enough, to handle like the seasonal performance requirements. And then lastly, like if you're taking those memberships associations that are offline and you're bringing them online, you'll have to often import their existing members, and having like really great spreadsheet skills, really great MySQL, SQL, query language skills is going to help with that. And I'd like to think like, that us as membership plugins, we could improve our importing tools. There's things we could do. We try our best. But if you've done this work before, like there's just stuff that has to be handled by a human. And a spreadsheet, I mean, I've seen spreadsheets where, like these custom sheets, these associations are using to manage things. There'll be a column that is literally like your date of birth or your spouse's last name. You know what I mean? And you're like, wait, what is that? That's not real. It's like, oh, because this system on COBOL from the 80s, it got mixed up. And now we just, we look at it. Or another common one is, a lot of associations with older members, they don't have email addresses, or they don't have email addresses like in the roster. And so you need to find a way to import those. WordPress wants an email address for every user if you're importing them as users. And so you want to find a way to kind of like create fake email addresses for these users that kind of goes to like one collected account or something like that. So you like, or duplicate emails, like the husband and wife, they both have the same email address. It's like WordPress is not going to let those accounts have the same email. So there's all kinds of like the data that you might have to import is really dirty. It needs to be scrubbed. And so being able to do that, in Excel before you kind of hand it off to the import tool for the membership plugin is going to help a lot. And yeah, I mean, that's like a hard thing, but that's like a really big need. Like a service that for like a flat fee will just import members. And maybe you classify it because you do want to like kind of like see how dirty that data is before you agree to do it for a flat fee. But if you become like a really great at doing these kind of data imports, I think there's like some high value business there. Okay, some pricing tips. Like I said, keep it simple. Like my rule of thumb is that like if you can't explain your pricing strategy in like English words, then the programmer's not going to be able to code. Important.
Aren't going to understand how pricing works. It's like maybe after like an hour-long
Zoom call where you really convince me and I figure out how to code it, I can make it work. But then like your customer's going to be confused like why they're paying $23.17, for February and then $29.13 for March or whatever, like, your odd pricing strategy is like producing. So there's going to be like this conflict with the customer where like they think you're just trying to like avoid work, which is definitely part of it. And like what tech debt and how stuff, can get messed up. But in reality, like the kind of thing you can push back to them and say, hey, like if you're having trouble explaining to me, you're not going to be able to explain it to your members. So again, like use this as an opportunity to simplify your pricing. Like another thing is like to avoid free trial invitation schemes. Let me see, I don't know if Good. Okay, I was just checking the chat quick. So avoid free trial invitation schemes. This is also a kind of flag that comes up when people, that chicken and egg thing, like they don't really have a following yet, so they're trying to like grow. Yeah, I'm building something and I need to get people invited to it, and people don't naturally aren't pulling for me to have this membership, so I need to kind of do this stuff. So on the one hand, it's like try to avoid that. Like if people aren't pulling for your membership or your product, like you're not really going to be able to force it on them often. There are exceptions. Like I said, that community where, you know, if you know the community's there, you just need them on your platform. Like you can use free trial mechanisms, but I would disentangle it from the payment. Like you don't want, hey, if you invite someone, you get a free month. That's so complicated to convey between like the affiliate tool and the gateway and the membership plugin that you're using. Like it doesn't really work for all the edge cases. I always say like, just, you know, use a regular affiliate program. And if you have a $25 a month membership, give them $25 cash for an invitation. Like if that's, it's going to be easier for you to kind of budget. It's going to be easier for them to work, and the technology is going to be easier. Another important point around, you know, pricing, of course, is that like your price should match the value that your membership is providing. And there's a number of ways to kind of come up with the correct price for your membership. And my short rule of thumb here, it's not written up, is that I encourage you to like look at all the resources on pricing. We have a bunch on the Paid Memberships Pro blog. And try all the different techniques to come up with a price, you know, just like, you know, figure out how much it costs, and then like do 2 or 3 times that amount to build in the margin. And then like just check out your competitors. What are they charging if you have competition? You know, kind of figure out the value, like an alternative, like, hey, they might be going to college for the same thing. So, you know, they'd be paying this much. I'll take like some percentage of that, give them a little bit of a discount and charge that much. So what I find is if you do like 10 of these pricing exercises, like the same price will keep coming up over and over. And you'd be like, oh, I'm kind of narrowing in on $50 a month or $400 a year or whatever it turns out to be. Other good ones are kind of like start small and raise your price until people kind of drop off, or start large and lower your price over time until, you know, people like, you know, too many people, it's overwhelming. But really important is the second to last bullet, which I think is that the timing of your membership pricing should match the timing of the value that you provide. So some examples to make this point clear. Our own website, we used to give like support for our membership plugin on a monthly plan. And what would happen is people would sign up, get support in the first month when they really need help. And then like on month 3, they hadn't talked to us for a while, and they'd be like, why am I paying you every month? And you'd be like, for support. And you're like, well, I don't need it, so I'm going to cancel. And then 6 months later, they'll need support. So they'll just sign up again, get support, and then cancel. Like you want to avoid that. Like we found like, you know, people who run their membership usually check in at least like once a year, is like, so we charge annually instead of monthly. Like that pace is pretty good. They usually have at least one issue, or they need to use our services like once a year to feel like they're getting value from the membership. The other one is sometimes, you know, around courses, you deliver like so much value. Like there's health and wellness courses that will like literally change your life. You know, like in the first month, you'll lose weight, you'll feel better, you'll sleep better, like you'll meet a significant other and like start a relationship, you'll like save money, and like your life has changed like by actually following this course to the T, you know, for first month. And maybe you're paying like $100 a month for it. And for $100, you're like, holy crap, like in 30 days, I've totally changed my life. And I'm like, I'm sold. But then month 2, you know, you did the course, and the month 2 content, you know, membership site owners are like, how do I get people to come back, you know, for month 2? They're like, well, you can like join my forum and talk to other customers who've been through it, which there is value, but like people are going to anchor the $100 to the life-changing value they got. And they'd be like, well, now I pay $100 just to like access the Facebook group. And they, you know, human nature, they just can't help it. They're like, well, it's $100 and then $100.
And so changing your pricing, we're like
upfront. If you deliver a ton of value up front, price it that way. Have $500 up front and then $50 a month to stay in the Facebook group. And you'll kind of get a better average lifetime value for your customer. I have a whole blog post about this that goes into it, but that's a good thing for pricing. The other one that I'll take a little bit of time going into, and I think I have one more slide just to review after this, is around anniversary payments. That's the term where, you know, this is how the default of membership software and like Stripe and gateways is. If I check out on, you know, June 16th and it's a monthly plan, or if it's an annual plan, I'm going to pay again June 16th next year on my anniversary. This is not the default for a lot of offline associations that have been doing it for years. And they have a lot of reasons for like charging everyone on January 1st. Like they want their fiscal year is like January to December 31st. And then like, you know, like they want to know you were a member, like what year were you a member? How many years were you a member? And they want that to line up. And then maybe most importantly, like sometimes their staff is like temporary, like people just come in January, everyone gets the email and the newsletter to like pay up. And then there's staff that in January is just on the phones and emails saying like, hey, did you send a check? You guys send your check. And so they want to do that all at once. It's kind of like, you know, more cost efficient for them to do it all at once. Now, when you go online, like all that stuff isn't true. Like the default is anniversary payments, and you don't want like everyone coming to your website in January. It's nice to like spread out the you know, performance-wise. We talked about you want to spread out the activity on your website. And then like an important factor here is that when you know, if people are paying every day because they're just paying whenever their anniversary is, you don't have to wait till January 1st to see like how many of your members are renewing or like how good the year is. Like you want to get away from like just seeing how many people renew and like that's our budget for the year now. You know, if people are paying every day, every month, you can kind of see like, oh, like July renewals were lower than June and August were lower than July. We're heading down. We need to do something to right to ship. Or the opposite, like things are going good, it's going up. So it's good like to get real-time feedback by having things on anniversary payments. So this is something you might have to talk to like associations that are coming online for the first time, like talk them into switching to anniversary payments that are simpler and kind of better for them in an online world. And then real quick, just to review like the main points I wanted to get across were, you know, like membership sites can be some of your most valuable clients because when they spend money, you know, like they make money, they're going to spend money to, you know, preserve and maintain that website. You know, it's great helping organizations and people achieve their goals in life. You know, the tech stack for this, I didn't get into the tech, I wanted high level, but like our membership plugin and the other plugins, like, and all the software in this WordPress space is like really great for this. You know, you just got to learn how to piece it together. And then, hey, hopefully like there was a niche in here that was like, that's kind of interesting, or I have a site that's almost like that, or, you know, you can be on the lookout for different types of membership sites. It's not just a membership site, but what specific type is it? Because, you know, it's a lot of work to get any one of these up and running, but once you do, you can copy that formula for, you know, other customers of that type if you can find them. I have some paid memberships pro resources. I didn't want to, you know, kind of promote my own product too much, you know, just talk about things at a high level. But when these slides are made available, you can click these links to come to our website and see more of the content around, you know, associations. All of our software is free on GitHub. So you can, you know, interact with the software there, try it out, you know, maybe a pull request to help us out if you notice something, open an issue if you have questions. And then we have a partnership program that, you know, you can apply for there. It's better if you kind of start up a communication with us first, or, you know, at least have like a couple example sites of things you did in the budget range for those websites. Because then if you're on our list and something else comes in, someone needs that, you know, we ship that work out. Yeah, that's it. Hope there's time for questions.
Awesome. Yeah, we've got a few minutes for questions, and we have a few questions, so this works out well. Do you see professional associations melding membership sites with LMS or learning management systems?
Yeah, we do. So the question was, you know, merging membership sites with LMSs, and totally. And you know, there's different formats. I've seen people start with a membership site and then they just want a course. And I'm often telling people like a course could be as simple as a PDF that gets downloaded, or an email that gets sent, or a video that's embedded on a page. It doesn't have to be complicated. Like maybe you don't need like courseware. You just need to build it, you know, the content and deliver it. And we're launching pretty soon actually like a courses plugin that adds a little bit of structure to building courses, but isn't as fully featured as like an LMS. Sometimes like,
and like I need certification and quizzes, and I need to keep track of progress better.
And people start as an LMS, and like as a membership, they just really almost mean like a recurring subscription. And so we like, hey, in that case, you should probably use an LMS platform and just use their membership extension. Or if like the member is the focus, use a membership plugin and use our courses extension. But sometimes people use both, and we work together, you know, like Lifter, LearnDash, a bunch of the LMSs. We build integrations with them, and it goes both ways to kind of get the software to work together.
Awesome.
So yes, yeah.
Okay. Brandon would like to know, in evergreen memberships, how do you prioritize creating new content versus updating old content to stay relevant?
That is a really great question. I think, the answer might be it depends. I guess one thing I can say with that is sometimes people do focus on new content a little too much, where, they probably have built a course or, some content that's really good. This is like what they're known for. They wrote it up. They kind of explained it really well. They have some posts and newsletters and like, man, that's the best thing, like it answers a question very specifically and they can sell that. And then they're like, oh, I have to keep churning out new content to keep making money so they can pay monthly. It's like, I don't know, sometimes maybe it's just sell something as a one-time payment and don't focus on new stuff. Like if you really have old stuff. So sometimes maybe you don't need new content. Like I see people feel like they're forced into new content. But sometimes like you are like, there's definitely like industry newsletters that follow an industry and write commentary and things like that. And they're selling access to like their op-eds and, like a Substack that's charging them, so much to get their paid newsletter. I guess in that case, you're kind of like forced to do new content and when new stuff comes, like, it's like just journalism. It's like an old topic comes up again, you write about it fresh perspective and you link to your old content. So hopefully that answers that question. There might be a more specific question in there he was hunting for.
You spoke about higher level hosting plans. Are you talking about
Yeah.
VPS non-shared plans, or are you talking about higher level shared plans, or just avoiding shared plans altogether? Just because there's so many different things, like managed WordPress hosting, and there's VPS, and there's cloud hosting. Like, in a perfect world, what would your recommendation be?
Man, I mean, that there are a lot of different offerings, and I think like that technically how it works is not that important. And like the hosting platform is so crazy. I almost should have like reviewed whatever the current GoDaddy offering is, but it's going to change next year anyway, right? So I think like, so that's hard to say, but you really, and you got to work with each individual host. They'll kind of let you know. But the main thing to avoid is like, and it usually is based on price. So just going up scale, like it could be technically shared, but it has more resources behind it to do it. And you don't need to like log in and run custom scripts. Like a VPS will give you like access to the underlying Linux environment to do tricky things. That's not always what you need to do with the membership site. So you don't really need that. You just need kind of like more performance, more memory, less reliance on caching. And typically the lower end, like entry level shared plans, the reason that they're so inexpensive is that they rely on caching to speed stuff up. Like you could host static websites for like literally $0 with a lot of tools. But as I went into on that one slide, like membership is a transactional website and you need to involve the server. And so you want to make sure. I think most of the hosts now are doing a pretty good job of like e-commerce, of like singling out like, hey, this is hosting for e-commerce. And if you find that plan, that's usually the same thing for membership. It's going to be useful.
Yeah, we do. And we have a whole e-commerce offering with memberships and Learn. I don't remember which LMS it is, but there's an LMS offer. So it's quite robust. But yes, there's just making sure that that's kind of what you were getting at versus like a high dollar VPS plan. We've got time for, I think, one more question. We've got 2 minutes left. What advice do you have for those who want to build membership sites for their clients as they're exploring their clients' needs? So like it's an add-on that's come up in conversation.
So I think the one piece of advice, I spoke a little bit about it, but I would make sure that they have a following first before you try to build a membership. You really want to have like a really captive audience already where you have their email address and they've expressed interest in giving you money for something in return. And you can.
So it's like when they say, I want recurring revenue, I want membership, just help them understand that, like, well, the first step
is kind of targeting who your members are going to be. Let's try to come up with a plan to build a newsletter, give out, content for free to build up that newsletter and kind of interact with those customers. Because if you can't even do that, like if you can't give out free content and get their email, like you're not going to get $50 a month from them. So you kind of like, you want to prove like I got so many members. And if you do, then it's like, oh, then you can start with like, don't be afraid to start with like one-time content as again, like that. So it's like levels, like I'm willing to give you my email address. Okay. I'm willing to like enter my credit card on your website. Okay. I paid for this content. It could be like repurposed blog content. So it's like, you already have this content, you just make it look nice and it's like more directed. People will pay you $5 to $50 for that ebook do that first. Now it's like, oh, people, of the subset of people willing to give me money, some of them will be willing to give me money repeatedly. What kind of value can I deliver repeatedly to kind of get there? So like, yeah, walk them through those steps.
Awesome. Well, that brings us to the end of this one. Thank you again, Jason, for being here. If you need to reach Jason, it's jason@paidmembershipspro.com or on Twitter @Jason_Coleman. And again, a lot of really good pieces and parts here. Don't forget, events.godaddy.com is exactly where you can go to find more events just like this one. We do this every Wednesday. Next week, we will hear from our SkyVerge team, and it's all about that e-com hosting I was just mentioning with the memberships options. And then the following week, we are hearing a case study about WP Sessions and how Brian Richards has his membership site set up. So that will be a little bit more of a dig in and a case study on that. We will see you all then. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.